Greetings guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to start by reading a short excerpt from the Sheep's Guidebook, also known as Wikipedia, just relating to the World's Columbian Exposition, also known as the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. So the World's Fair, held in 1893 to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival in the New World in 1492, allegedly. The centerpiece of the fair was the large water pool represented the long voyage Columbus took to the New World. Chicago had won the right to host the fair over several other cities, including New York, New York City, Washington D.C., and St. Louis. The exposition was an influential social and cultural event and had a profound effect on architecture, sanitation, the arts, Chicago's self-image, and the American industrial optimism. So let's take a bit of a closer look at some of these amazing buildings. In particular, seen here is the Manufacturing and Liberal Arts Building. So this building in 1893 was actually the largest building in the world, and a massive feat considering it was only built in 18 months. Put together with, so they say, wood, steel and a putty, sort of a mix of concrete and white plaster, turned into something they called staff, resembling marble once it's sprayed white. Not only to mention that to create this effect of marble in such a short space, obviously they say they couldn't harvest this sort of marble and resources, so they invented the spray paint machine, and this is where it all began. They painted this whole site, known as the White City, with white spray paint, and this was the first time spray paint was seen anywhere in the world. Now, when the building was finished construction in October 1892, 100,000 people attended the opening ceremony, and the promoters actually said that they could fit 300,000 people with 6 square feet of elbow space, or around 1.5 meters social distancing in today's terms, which is just an incredible feat. The noise of that many people under one roof would just be incredible. I don't think they heard anything going on in the ceremony, but definitely an amazing thing to be a part of back then. So we'll just go over a couple of the specifications. This building was 1,687 feet by 787 feet. The roof reached 245 feet into the sky. The building was supported by 8 100-foot pavilions at the corner and center of each wall. So they say you could fit the Great Pyramid of Giza within this building, which for a building that was constructed in less than 2 years and only for 6 months, as the fair only ran for 6 months, that seems really wasteful and something that we just would not do today. I mean, that's an unimaginable scale. We don't even know how they built the pyramids today, let alone to build a garage for it is just absurd. Seen here behind the Statue of the Republic was the peristyle. Such a truly magnificent structure. Definitely would not look out of place in Rome, in the Vatican City. So the peristyle was a Roman-style colonnade with double rows of 48 columns on either side, facing Lake Michigan. This is where people would enter if they came via water, as it was a bridge underneath the arch there. So supporting that roof was adorned with intricate statues, and they say that these statues were supported by cables. And just looking at this particular image right now, I don't see any cables. yet apparently they're there. And just looking at this next photo, here the cables are clearly visible, but to me they just don't look real. That looks photoshopped to me. Considering we couldn't see them in the last photo, and then here they are, and the contrast between the statues and the cables just doesn't look right to me, but I'm not a professional. Gonna have to ask my photographer friend to see what she reckons. So, besides that, the colonnade met in a massive arch in the middle, resembling the the Arc de Triomphe. And it housed on top was a group of horses, statues of horses pulling a wagon, and they say symbolizing explorers. Okay, if they say so. Moving on to another expo at this World's Columbian Exposition was the State Buildings Expo. Here, seen looking like a city on its own, yet just an expo, complete with mud flooders from every state, in my opinion. So they say that it was utilized to show off major resources of each state. A promotion of resources at the fair was intended to create new channels of trade and display goods to new potential markets. And we'll go over a few. Seen here, the Wisconsin building, looking just like a mud flutter. Move on to the Texas building, different but the same in my opinion. Clearly the arches and the spires all showing. So moving on here, we have the Pennsylvania, looking very Tartarian in my opinion. Clearly an old mud flutter, ornate and intricate. This is the main building, so looking like a European castle if you ask me. And lastly, showing the California state building, to me just looks like something out of Turkey in Istanbul. All of them resembling old mud flutters like this guy right here. And clearly the influence of these buildings found all over the world impacted the promoters, supposedly, to build these state buildings, even though not for a second do I believe that story. In my opinion, it's all lies, and these buildings were here prior to these promoters taking advantage of this site. Okay, so moving on to the amusement park portion of the World's Fair. Seen here the famous Ferris wheel of the Chicago World's Fair 1893. And to put in perspective, here we see a Ferris wheel in the same city in 1995. So on the left, 1893, 100 years before, and 100 feet taller. I mean, we really are going backwards in time. I don't see any reason why we would build smaller, and I'm sure we're going to be told for safety reasons, but there's a lot of things we can't explain about these buildings, and we have an excuse for all of them. Coming to the end here of my presentation, thanks for sticking around if you're still here. If you've liked what you've seen, a like would be much appreciated. And just moving on now to the last building I'm going to cover, which is the transportation building. Now this thing, not white like the rest of this white city. It was painted, they say, red and blue and purple, like all different colors, with a golden arch and golden door there in the center, and just a truly grand structure. Now this was the work of Louis Sullivan and has all the bells and whistles of architectural training, traveling to Europe and through Paris with all the architects there, of course, and has to drop past Paris when they're dropping buildings like that constantly. And the reason I say constantly is, let's just have a look at a period in this gentleman's life around the same time as the 1893 World's Fair. Now, I'm not an architect and I don't know how many jobs an architect would take on at a time, but looking at the transportation building, that seems like a lot of work, and that was around 1891. Now let's have a look at what he was doing at the same time. The Prudential building in 1891, That was finished in 1894. Here we have the Charlotte Dixon Wainwright tomb, which was from 89 to 1892. So that took him 3 years, and it's just a tomb. We go on, we've got the Guarantee Building, 1894, again, started in 1891. James Sharley House, finished in 1892. The McVickers Theatre, which he finished in 1891, so literally finished the McVickers and carried on to the World's Fair, and also the New Orleans Station, which was finished in 1891 I should say, and that was demolished in 1954. Now that seems like a lot of work to take on at the same time. I don't know how he would have accomplished that with such intricate structures. Nothing like this has been seen in Chicago prior, so it just feels like the they or the them find a name along history and just stick a bunch of buildings to the name and assume that no one will look into it. And perhaps I'm wrong and I've overlooked something, but it just seems that way. And considering how much he had going on at the same time, it just seems a little bit far-fetched. Now, before I take off, I'd just like to thank a couple of people. Mivanwe, Tiny Dancer, a couple of subscribers that have supported me and helped me with a few things along the way, and also Karen from the Unscrambled channel, who's helped me with a few subscribers and mirroring my stuff. It's greatly appreciated. And also Francis Judge II, who's also mirrored a few and helped me along with the subscribers. Really appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot, everyone. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or evening. My name is Phil. This is Tartarian Zephyr. Take it easy.